Prince Wayne of the Natra Kingdom is beloved by the people, but in secret he detests his responsibilities and treasonously plots to sell the kingdom. The Natra Kingdom has long winters and no decent farmland, so the economy is poor and its debts extensive. The only one who knows of Wayne's selfishness is his assistant, Ninyam Relay, who tries to keep him in line. The rich king of Marden is incompetent and hated by his citizens, so he plans to successfully invade Natra to make himself popular. Wayne hopes to badly defend Natra and then negotiate to exchange the kingdom for money. Unfortunately, due to a deal he made with the Earthworld Empire months ago for funding and training, plus a rousing improvised speech, his army actually defeats Marden, to Wayne's great frustration. Knowing he must keep his general's loyalty and maintain his facade as a great ruler, Wayne suggests invading Marden's largest gold mine, hoping his generals will respect his courageous suggestion but reject the idea as too dangerous. Unfortunately, all the generals agreed to the invasion. Wayne holds out hope that the invasion will fail, but the mine is taken easily, bringing wealth to Natra and further convincing everybody. Wayne learns from his chief miner that the mine is actually worthless. Marden's king, Fushtare, is convinced by his corrupt advisors to send General Darwood and his army to retake the mine, even though it leaves their borders undefended. Still hoping to make a profit and suspecting Fushtare doesn't know the mine is worthless, Wayne decides to defend the mine for 1 month, and then let Fushtare buy it back. After weeks of fighting, Darwood sends Commander Logan to negotiate peace. However, when Logan grossly insulted Ninyam, Wayne beheads Logan, then personally infiltrates Darwood's camp and kills him for insulting Ninyam, revealing just how strong his feelings for her are. It is revealed Wayne is more capable than he seems, as he had attended Earthwood's military academy and came first in every class, an embarrassment to Earthworld, who kept his test scores a state secret. Wayne learns that Marden was invaded through its unprotected border by the Kavarian Kingdom and Fushtare is dead, ending his plan to sell back the mine. Thankfully, his chief miner discovers a new, highly profitable gold seam. Wayne plans to celebrate, but Ninyam threatens him with returning to work, further reinforcing his desire to somehow sell the kingdom and retire. A friend of Wayne and Ninyam's from the academy offers a political marriage. Wayne is suspicious as Loa is a notorious troublemaker. Loa privately reveals her 3 older brothers are fighting to become emperor, so she wants Wayne's help to become empress. Wayne is still suspicious as Loa's visit has coincided with weapons being smuggled into Natra. Falanya, Wayne's younger sister, wonders why Wayne doesn't marry Ninyam, but Ninyam claims marriage is impossible due to her fam people being discriminated against, so she is content knowing Wayne loves her and only her. Wayne tutors Falanya in inter-kingdom politics, focusing on Antgatal. The current Antgatal Marquess, Gerard's father, Grenache, is a notorious tyrant. Loa remembers how at the academy, Wayne recognized her ambition and bluntly told her to take what she wanted, perhaps by starting a war. He also bluntly told her he would avoid helping at all costs, so she would have to drag him into her war by trickery, which she is currently scheming to do and wonders how Wayne will try to maneuver his way out of it. Wayne confirms that the nations conquered by the Empire are staging a rebellion. He also correctly guesses that Loa's brothers are too busy fighting each other to have noticed. So Loa is trying to manipulate Grenache into rebelling early by using her betrothal as bait. Gerard arrives to claim Lowell as his fiancée. Wayne reasons that Lowell will manipulate Gerard into ending his father's rebellion using Natra's army, so Wayne must try not to be manipulated into giving over his army. Gerard learns that Wayne was trained with the sword and asks for a demonstration. Wayne intends the duel to be a draw, but Gerard is so incompetent that Wayne wins without trying. Furious, Gerard attempts to stab Wayne in the back, but is so drunk that he smashes through a window and falls to his death. Grenache believes Gerard was assassinated by Wayne and Lowell and prepares for war. The conspirators behind the rebellion are afraid war will cause the rebellion to be discovered. Wayne is furious that he now faces war with Geraint and probably the Empire. Lowell discusses how to focus on crushing the rebellion with Wayne's assistance, but Wayne reveals that their current budget has limited Natra's army to only 500 men. Instead, they must somehow expose the rebellion so war can be avoided entirely. Wayne pays an official visit to Antigal to return Gerard's body to Grenache and discuss peace. The conspirators scramble to work out what Wine is up to. Wine reveals that Loa knows about the rebellion but offers to let Grenache claim innocence by claiming Gerard was the real conspirator. Grenache asks for time to reconsider, so Wine leaves, only for Grenache to send the conspirator after Wine to get revenge for Gerard. Wine had been expecting this and realized the conspirators were all from the Western Kingdom, and had clearly tried to manipulate Grenache into doing their dirty work for the rebellion, but the plot has now failed. Wine defeats them while Nanaki, Wine's assassin bodyguard, stops other conspirators from destroying evidence in Grenache's castle. Grenache chases Wine as he escapes back towards Natra, only to find Wine has stationed his army on the border, trapping Grenache between Wine and Loa, who arrives with her own Imperial soldiers. Having been exposed and captured, Grenache admits to everything. With her mission successful, Loa calls off her engagement to Wine, though Ninyam tricks her into confessing she likes Wine. Wine admits there were easier ways he could have defeated Grenache, but this means Loa now has control over him for use in the future. Loa returns to the Empire, hoping one day to be Empress so Wine and Ninyam can be friends like they used to. Wine is forced to visit the Kavarian Kingdom for the Spirit Festival, a holiday of the Lavedian region. During the journey, he visits his captured gold mine and worries that trouble might arise following the retirement of his general, Hagel. Several Natran nobles, led by a woman named Ibis, plot to seize Wine's throne. Wine is ambushed by soldiers disguised as bandits, but is rescued by remnants of Mardin's army led by General Zeno. Zeno threatens to assassinate Wine to prevent him allying with Kavarian, but as Wine suspects the bandits were Kavarian soldiers, he offers Zeno access to Kavarian via his diplomatic status, allowing her to meet rulers of other kingdoms, potential allies against Kavarian. At Kavarian's capital, Tristoria, Wine meets General Levert and suspects he was behind the fake bandit ambush. Wine meets King Ordelas, while Zeno almost assassinates Holonia, a treasonous former advisor to her deceased king, Fushtare. Ordelas introduces Wine to the Holy Elite, Lavedian's ruling members, and shocks everyone by inviting Wine as a new member. Wine meets privately with Elite Caldemedia, but leaves when she asks Wine to wipe out the remnants of Mardin's army in exchange for helping him as an elite. It is revealed that Caldemelia is allied with Owl, one of the Ant Gatal conspirators who lost an arm dueling with Wine. Ninyam finds proof Levert is conspiring to kill Wine and overthrow Natra. At the same time, Ibis and the nobles take over Wine's gold mine. Wine realizes that by elevating him to elite, Ordelas hopes to put Wine in his debt. Ordelas casually reveals he had a daughter who disappointed him, so he executed his wife, claiming she conceived their daughter in an affair with another man. He then enrages Wine when he asks to purchase Flam citizens of the Natra kingdom, like Ninyam, so he can hunt them for sport. Wine murders Ordelas, while Zeno gets her revenge by murdering Holonia. Caldemelia frames Levert for conspiring against Ordelas and moves to seize power in Kavarin. Out of a twisted gratitude to Wine, she sends him a message informing him that Natra has been seized by corrupt Natran nobles. With this information, Wine leads Levert and his men into a trap between the treasonous nobles' army and the Mardin soldiers, forcing Levert to attack both. Wine also reveals that he faked General Hagal's retirement, and that he arrives and destroys Levert and the Natran traitors. Zeno reveals to Zeno that she is actually Mardin's princess, though Wine knew this the whole time. Ibis reports to her master, Caldemelia, who begins plotting how to cause even more chaos. Zeno requests Mardin become a vassal state to Natra, allowing Wine to rule Mardin as well, which will make Wine's life even more difficult, amusing both Ninyam and Zeno. Loa attends the summit of Imperial heirs in Maeltar's merchant city, where she and her brothers will negotiate for the throne. Loa invites Wine, but Falania attends instead. Wine had intended to claim he was busy so as to annoy Loa, not expecting Falania to volunteer. Wine sends Ninyam and Nanaki as chaperones and thoroughly educates Falania about the princess. Manfred gains support through cunning and bribery. Bardlosh is a soldier and has the support of the military, and the eldest, Demetrio, is a notorious troublemaker. Loa wants Falania to support her publicly, but is told by Wine that there is no interest in an alliance with the Empire unless Loa is its empress. Falania learns of the Citizens' Assembly, where common merchants create laws, which interests Falania that Muelters are ruled by their citizens. Demetrio decides Falanya's presence instead of Wine's is an insult. Pretending he desires an alliance with Natra, he asks Falanya to marry him, planning to abuse her terribly once she becomes his wife. He is surprised when Falanya shows knowledge of political royal marriages, allowing her to temporarily refuse his proposal. Losing his temper, Demetrio swears to ruin Natra once he becomes emperor, only for Wine to suddenly appear, having heard Demetrio's angry outburst. Wine agrees to the marriage but claims he and Loa will marry as well. Realizing that 2 royal marriages would give Natra enormous power in the empire, Demetrio agrees to discuss the matter later. Wine, who displays symptoms of ill health, worries that the Levedians will try to stop the Mieltars from joining the empire. Loa is worried that the summit will fail. Worried about Wine's intentions, Manfred orders him to be assassinated. Falanya spends more time at the Citizens' Assembly, and is surprised when the merchants invite her to join their debate. In his next meeting with Demetrio, Wine realizes the tea has been poisoned by Manfred's assassin. Thinking Wine is trying to insult his hospitality, Demetrio drinks the tea himself before Wine can stop him and collapses. Demetrio survives, but Manfred and Bardlosh blame the Mieltars and surround the city with their armies. Mieltars decide to escape to Natra, but Levedia's army also arrives, supposedly to save Mieltars from Manfred and Bardlosh. The situation worsens Wine's health and he collapses. Falanya gives a speech to the panicking assembly. Wine awakens and shares a caring moment with Ninyim. Reasoning that citizens are more important than the city, Falanya evacuates all 30,000 citizens who walk right past the stationed armies to ask a similarly stunned Caldmelia for asylum. Knowing Levedia can't cope with 30,000 refugees, Wine steps in with a suggestion. Wine suggests Mieltar's citizens fight for themselves by buying the weapons from Levedia's army. Impressed, Caldmelia almost refuses to see Wine panic, but her king Gruyere accepts. Manfred and Bardlosh meet with Wine, who claims Demetrio planned his own failed poisoning. Despite knowing this is a blatant lie, Bardlosh and Manfred are forced to agree to avoid war. Loa is surprised that Wine only got involved because Falanya likes Mieltars and didn't want her first political experience to end in failure. Ninyim is impressed that Wine has abandoned his plan to sell Natra, even though it is for yet more selfish reasons. Gruyere invites Wine to a ceremony in the Solgest Kingdom. Wine visits Mardin, where he suspects Zeno will ask for a political marriage. Despite the advantages for Mardin, Zeno never mentions marriage. Zeno asks why Wine concerns himself with the well-being of commoners. So Wine points out that far back enough in history, all royal families began with a commoner who distinguished themselves and founded the family line. Therefore, all commoners have the potential for nobility in the future, so it's wise to be wary of them in the present. He attempts to goad Zeno into discussing marriage, but having decided she would be an unfit queen for a king like Wine, she claims he is not her type, depressing him that his childish plan to thwart her proposal had failed. Wine fraudulently labels imperial goods as Natran and sells them to the west via Mardin. Prime Minister Sigris of Delunio confronts Wine over the fraud, but Wine dismisses him. Arriving at Solgest, Wine is impressed by its trading ports. Wine suspects Solgest King Gruyere will try to prevent imperial goods from being traded, and hopes to manipulate Gruyere against the hostile Delunio kingdom. Princess Tolchelia, Gruyere's daughter, manages to distract Wine with Solgest's finest cuisine. Sigris demands back land it leased to Mardin, arguing that since Mardin is now part of Natra, the Mardin kingdom no longer exists, voiding the lease. When Gruyere meets with Wine, he is surprised. Gruyere claims that despite being a Leviathan elite, he doesn't think of Flams like Ninyim as devils, and is quite liberal. He agrees to an alliance with Natra, but as Wine leaves, it is revealed that Gruyere is working with Sigris. After returning to Natra, Wine is told by Delunio that he has invaded Mardin and Solgest, and declared war on Natra. Zeno suggests Natra somehow make peace with Delunio, but Wine declares he has a plan to turn everything upside down. Sigris plots to donate the recaptured Mardin land to the Levedian Church in exchange for becoming an elite. While negotiating with Sigris, Wine offers to assassinate Gruyere, pointing out that if Solgest keeps growing in power, it will likely go to war with Natra and Delunio. Overconfident, Sigris offers to accept Natran refugees after the war, so Wine declares Natra's 800,000 citizens will move into Delunio as refugees immediately. Knowing Wine already did something similar with Mieltar's 30,000 citizens, Sigris panics. Wine also falsely claims the clothing he sold to Delunio via Mardin was covered in a slow-acting poison, and that Delunio's citizens would soon die. Totally outmaneuvered by Wine's daring and scheming, Sigris is forced to agree to Wine's terms. Gruyere is defeated and imprisoned in Natra. Wine reveals that Sigris' surrender cost him his political reputation, and he is no longer a threat. Gruyere agrees to sign peace declarations, but first demands to know what is truly in Wine's heart that drives him to such extremes. Wine's answer first shocks, then highly amuses Gruyere. The next day, Ninian points out that achieving peace has cost Natra most of its wealth and its peaceful relationship with the Levetian Church. Wine throws a tantrum as he realizes his plan to sell Natra is further away than ever, and he has a lot of work to do to fix it. And that's the end of the video. As always, if you liked what you saw, subscribe to the channel. I'll be uploading a lot of videos just like this, so I'll see you at the next one.